Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How Modern Records Management Practices Are Essential for Business Today. I'm Teresa Resick, Director of Online Events here at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's event. And with me today are Jesse Wilkins of AIIM and Randall Sanders of Access. Access is the underwriter of today's webinar, and we thank them for their support. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started, I just want to offer a few pointers for viewing today's webinar. By joining live, you can customize your own viewing experience, so feel free to open, close, or resize the different windows. And across the bottom of your screen is the list of all of the widgets that are available to you. Group chat is available to you, and just open that by clicking that icon that is along the bottom. And with group chat, you will be able to text chat with each other and also with a few of us from here at AIIM. Do ask questions of the speakers throughout our time today using the Q&A feature, and that's to the left of the slide area. And we will hold these until the end, where we should have about 5 or 10 minutes to answer them. But you can also use this feature to ask for any technical assistance. You can download a PDF of the presentation at any time. Just look to the resources list. There's also a couple of other documents and links in there to help you learn more about today's topic. So just click in there at any time, and that resource will open in a new browser tab, and you can save it and read it after the webinar. At the end of this webinar, a brief survey will open in your browser, and it's also in the widgets below the slide area. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would take a few moments to offer your feedback and to suggest other topics for us to cover. And this webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to AIIM.org's Resources Webinars page in just a few days. And now to introduce today's speakers. Jesse Wilkins is the Director of Certification for AIIM. He has worked in the information management industry for more than 20 years as an end user, vendor, consultant, and trainer. Jesse is an accredited instructor for every course AIIM offers and regularly develops and delivers custom courses for organizations. He was also the technical lead for the development of the AIIM Certified Information Professional, the CIP certification. We also have with us Randall Sanders, and he's been working in the records and information management space for over 20 years. His practical knowledge helps guide Access's clients to solve their current physical and digital challenge, and does that by helping to transform their business processes, which allows organizations to focus on their corporate strategic goals. So right now, I'm going to turn things over to Jesse Wilkins to begin our discussion today. Jesse?
Hi, Teresa. Thanks. And thanks, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to join us on today's webcast. I'd like to start by talking about, I'm going to break this into kind of 3 sections. And at the end of each section, we're going to get some good discussion going with Randy as well. So I'd like to start by talking about concepts and principles of modern records management, sort of how we see the term as it applies today. So we believe that you have systems and technologies that hold information. And of course, you add and change and ultimately discard those systems at the end of their life cycle, but they hold information that's critical to the business. In fact, according to recent AIIM research, the average organization has at least 4 different document, content, and records management systems, and 8% have more than 10 separate systems for managing information. So if you're one of those, you're definitely not alone. We believe truly at AIIM that information is your most important asset. But in order to leverage that asset for maximum business advantage, you have to know what you have and you have to understand it. A few years ago, I read a great article by a law firm called "What If Companies Treated Their Money Like They Treat Their Information?" And it starts like this. Pardon my asking, but how much money does the company actually have? Frankly, no one knows. We don't really keep track of that. We have boxes of paper currency stored off-site, but as for active money, our employees keep that pretty much wherever they choose, in the network money systems, in their individual offices, in mobile wallets, and probably some stashed at home. And of course, the article gets better or worse, depending on your point of view, from there. So we believe that the foundations for modern records management overlap substantially with our core tenets for intelligent information management, as you see in the ebook on the screen. So to that end, We're going to look at each of those topics, those foundations, in the next couple of slides. First, it's about modernizing your information infrastructure. Legacy applications and silos cause issues. Where's the updated information? Where's the single source of truth? Maybe the most important question, where should employees put their stuff? This means that we need to rationalize and streamline the existing business environment. But at the same time, we have to do that while keeping in mind that legacy applications means legacy data. And that legacy data may still need to be retained because of legal or regulatory concerns. More on that in just a second. You have to protect your information assets. Recent research indicates that 26% of organizations had a data loss or data breach in the previous 12 months due to staff negligence or bad practices. Only 10% of those breaches or exposures were due to external hacking or intrusion. And what that means, if you take those two numbers out, it's the bad actors internally combining with a lack of effective data protection practices that really contributes most substantially to these sorts of data protection issues. It's that disgruntled employee or about to be former employee. What's worse, nearly 6 out of 10 organizations didn't know whether they'd been breached or not in the previous 12 months. They simply had no idea. So effective information management practices can significantly reduce risk, both the risks of something bad happening and the amount of data that is at risk of something bad happening. Next, we believe you need to digitize your core business processes. Again, we do this research all the time, and in a different sort of research, we found that fully half of organizations said that too many manual business processes was a significant limitation. And within those processes, 59% said that manual data entry and search were their biggest challenges. Another 32% are struggling with non-digitized, that is, paper-based processes. So our research shows, as you see on the screen, that fully 65% of organizations are still signing contracts on paper. Now, some of this could be due to specific legal requirements, but most of it's due to lack of acceptance of digital signatures despite decades of practice and regulatory acceptance, at least in many jurisdictions. So how do you address this? Well, first, digitize everything that moves as early as possible in the process. You cannot afford today to work at the speed of paper. Better yet, don't print in the first place. Capture digital information digitally as much as possible. Second, the terms streamline and automate really have to be the working terms for the organization. This means using tools like robotic process automation and artificial intelligence to get humans out of simple, rote, paper-oriented processes and move them into roles where they can maximize value through the organization, through innovation and improving the customer experience. We need to automate governance and compliance. Manual processes don't work, and manual records management processes especially don't work because A, users aren't trained to be records managers, and B, users don't want to be records managers. It's not what they're paid to do. They're paid to bring value to the organization in the specific role that they fill. So again, automation is the key here. If we make records management as transparent as possible through the use of effective processes, and then we work with the tools like analytics and process automation and artificial intelligence, it's going to be that much more effective. And finally, we believe that you have to leverage artificial intelligence. We put this slide last because it touches to some extent on all of the previous ones. So let's leverage artificial intelligence practices and tools to extract insight from all of your information and then streamline and automate how you manage it. So here's some simple examples. We can use these sorts of tools to automatically tag documents with their appropriate metadata, including appropriate security and appropriate retention and disposition. We can automatically sort and classify documents into systems. We can remediate missing metadata when we're doing system conversions or migrations. And we can even use them as a tool to clean up and dispose of legacy data, such as you would find in file shares.
You know, Jesse,
Andy, what do you think about this?
Yeah, you jumped in on me. But you couldn't be more right. I mean, the speed of business cannot keep up if critical information is locked in a manual process or stuck on a piece of paper. Information is the key to decision making, hiring and firing, mergers and acquisitions, and just about every other element of your business. Obviously, it's important to be embedded into the workflow of those processes throughout your organization and to make sure that you're following proper compliance and then all the way through the whole entire process that's followed. And as records managers, we need to adapt to the changing workforce and technologies that are available, like Jesse mentioned, and not just be a stop at the end of the process. As a practical example, take HR for instance. I bet there are not only paper files in most offices, but there is data and documents in various siloed technologies that are used during the employee lifecycle. Without modern records management, we would be struggling to know where all that information lives and probably won't even be aware of it until a terminated employee gets boxed up and sent to the file room. How can we possibly be able to properly manage the retention on information we have no data on? But how about this as an example? By applying a records management application with technology, AI, automated processing that is tailored to suit the needs of HR and their business process while ensuring proper retention and governance for all of the digital and physical information, you have enabled the business to focus on their strategic corporate goals rather than paperwork. Ultimately, the end users get quick access to information normally filed away in those cabinets or multiple siloed technologies, and you get adherence to retention schedules, information, governance, and proper disposition when, of course, those dates are met. Jesse, back to you.
Yeah, so I think next what we want to kind of talk about is what happens when you've got modern records management or you're thinking about that, and maybe we give you some ideas today. And then when you take that to your executives and they just want to talk about technology because they saw something at a conference or on the latest magazine cover and they say, hey, that looks really cool. We should definitely do that. So let's talk about kind of how to address that. So every organization has information, as we mentioned at the start of the call, and that means that every organization has bad information and missing metadata about that information and even incorrect information. And so that makes it harder to find the information that you need when you need it. Tools like AI can help, but they still need some human guidance and tweaking. Again, the bigger the pile and the bigger the amount of that pile that's missing important metadata, the harder it is to do meaningfully. So we believe that ultimately effective records management practices plus some automation means better metadata and ultimately better findability. At the same time, too many projects are technology projects that really have no clear goal or alignment to business objectives. For example, many organizations, and I talk to folks about this all the time, many organizations want to do AI. That's literally how they say it. They want to do AI. Well, why? What's the business problem that it's intended to address? Will it actually address that business problem? Or, in answer to both questions, is it because someone on the board said, hey, why aren't we doing AI? Or when will we do AI? This occurs with every technology, but it seems to be even more prevalent with whichever technology is the latest, greatest, the one that's on the cover of all the magazines. As Scott Cook, the founder of Intuit, once said, success is not delivering the future. Success is learning how to solve a customer's or business's problem. In too many organizations today, technology is a feature. And again, technology needs to support the needs of the business rather than be done just because it's cool. We can also kind of look through this through the lens of garbage in, garbage out. According to research a couple of years ago by the Compliance, Governance, and Oversight Council, for an average organization, about 2% of their information holdings is on legal, regulatory, or audit hold. Another 5% of their information holdings are formally declared as records and managed as part of an ongoing records management program. 25% is related to ongoing business needs, objectives, and projects. What that means is that 68% of the information in the average organization is garbage. It's redundant, it's outdated, it's trivial, and so the more of that you have, the harder it is to derive value from it. Technology, any sort of technology, is a hammer or a wrench or a screwdriver, whatever. The point is, not every problem is a nail, right? So any technology is a great fit for what it's designed to do. And it might be able to be made to work or made to do a few other things. But there is no one magical tool that's a perfect fit for every challenge. There are plenty of use cases where a particular technology isn't a good fit at all, at least not yet. At the same time, technology doesn't really do anything if you have a lot of paper-based information. So one of the key challenges and key things that we need to do is digitize paper, at least active paper, so that we can then take these technologies and bring them to bear.
Yeah, Jesse, you know what? We see it all the time. For example, we provide amazing and insightful metrics to our clients, like budgetary information based on future disposition, departmental spend based on storage and activity, and even that 2% that's in circulation that you may need to bring back that's on hold. These insights are obviously diminished when the metadata provided is either incomplete or non-existent. I know I've seen my fair share of boxes that say Jane's desk or Bill's stuff, or even holiday decorations. That's not going to do it. Not good. Applying technology over a bad foundation is structurally unsound. A solution provider can help you navigate the best practices and apply the principles that will create a solid foundation to which technology can then be added. Metrics, as a technology measurement tool, provide insights across the business into spend, but also risk mitigation. Similarly, technology like AI and auto-classification tools can help speed up the process of building that solid foundation and providing proactive, actionable information to help the business. And I think we wanted to take a quick poll here, Teresa, just to see how ancient or modern everybody's records management program is.
That we do. So if everybody would come back to your keyboards and answer this question for us, because this is going to set up more what the talk will continue after this. But as Randy said, how modern is your records management program? Are you in the dark ages? What is a records management program? Are you in the Stone Ages? Some information, but incomplete. Find yourself in the Middle Ages. Good management of physical inventory, but digital, what's that? Digital revolution. Good management of both physical and digital, but no technology. Or are you in the technology age? Technology like AI, metrics, etc., applied to physical and your digital inventory. So just tick off one of those of where you see your organization and in its the modernization of its, or lack of modernization in your records management program. And even someone commented in group chat she encounters a lot of businesses who are pretty much in the dark or the Stone Ages. So we just want to get a pulse point of where you are. And so I'll give you a second to complete that, and then we're going to take a look at the results here. And I'm going to invite Jesse Wilkins to come back on, and let's take a look at these results. And happily, I'm seeing no one in the dark ages, which is a plus. It's, as always, room for improvement.
Yeah, I think that's it, Teresa. It's been my experience, both as a consultant and talking to students at our classes, that most organizations, I think, would believe themselves at least in the Middle Ages. They have a good physical records program and good foundational principles in place. It's once we start getting into the digital that it gets a little bit more challenging. And frankly, I'm heartened that so many people feel that they're towards the better end of that spectrum. It looks like more than half say that they've either got good digital or even in the technology age. So maybe there's hope.
Sounds like it. We'll go ahead and continue from here.
Okay. So To wrap up, the last thing I want to kind of talk about is how to position modern records management as a business enabler. I think for a long time we've kind of talked about records management through the prism of compliance and keeping the CEO out of jail, and while those may be very laudable goals, they're not things to really get excited about. And so what I'd like to sort of wrap up with is talk about some of the ways that we really can try and say, you know, here's what a good records management program can do for the organization that we can actually measure and how to get there. So the first thing is to identify ways that records management can enable the business. What are the ways that your good practices around information management can actually enable the organization to achieve or succeed on its business goals and objectives? So think through the different things that are part of an effective modern records management program. Information lifecycle management, taxonomy and metadata development and support, identifying and automating the capture of records as part of a business process, and of course in support of that process. We also think you need to be proactive about it, and this means looking at the systems in place periodically and the information on those systems so that we can kind of understand where's it at in the life cycle. Are there other things that we can do to maximize the value of that information? Because information is an asset. It means working with IT to understand technology life cycles and limitations, as well as maybe some opportunities. I can't tell you how many times we've talked in our classes about technology and technology spend and where they're at, and then somebody will chime in, yeah, we've got this stuff and we don't even use it. So there's definitely probably some opportunity there. And given how much IT spend is being done by the business today and the importance of business alignment, it means working with the business as well. What this all boils down to is that we believe you need to be specific, identify specific, tangible ways in which better records management can help enable the business. Not things like better compliance with requirements, but rather something more powerful or impactful, like we can improve customer service outcomes by 40%, or we can reduce the time required to onboard new hires by 35%, something that you can actually tie down and put a metric to. One of the challenges records managers often face is that we're perceived as the group of no. No, you can't do business using that system. No, you can't keep information longer than the retention schedule says, etc. So one way to become a business enabler is to think through those same questions and decision points with an eye towards finding the yes. In other words, this means rephrasing your question and your response more in the line of how can we do X in such a way that it enables the business while not causing undue liability and security and et cetera. So here's an example. A business unit wants to keep its information longer than the retention schedule requires because they want to run semantic analysis on some point. Okay, well, let's review that decision with the business unit. And instead of just simply saying no, let's look at things like, you know, there's an increased operational cost to store and manage that information throughout its increased life cycle. There's increased cost for discovery and disclosure potentially. There's a potentially higher exposure to privacy and data protection issues. And this is a big deal today because of those four little letters, GDPR, and so forth. So maybe the answer would be to anonymize or pseudonymize that information. Maybe there's a balancing line between the minimum statutory retention and what the business asked for initially because they hadn't really thought through those considerations. Maybe the business unit hadn't even thought about it other than, well, I want it. But this way we can actually help guide and enable better decision making by the business as opposed to always being the party of no. You need to future-proof your program. So think about your current records program today, all of y'all who are in the technology age and the current age. Is your program up to date? Is it working well? Is it applied consistently to both physical and digital records and across the entire organization? The thing is, if you have a good program in place, then when the C-suite jumps on an emerging technology bandwagon, you'll be able to trust that your records and information program won't hold them back. But it does mean that you need to have some flexibility and adapt those timeless record-keeping principles to take into account what we can get out of AI or what GDPR requires or whatever it is that the next thing ends up being. Finally, we can also help the business by providing guidance and standards around how information should be managed. For example, a long-held tenet of records management is that information should be managed according to its value to the organization, not its format. So paper and scanned and born digital records should all be managed equally. Applying this tenet to the petabytes of information in the modern organization is not simple, but the principles remain valid. Information has a value, and a life cycle is assigned according to that value. So how do we apply this? Well, we help the business and IT to understand that once an application or the data on it no longer has value, it should be disposed of. But information that does still have value needs to be migrated to current technology. This is especially important when users leave the organization, when systems are decommissioned, both of which can leave a lot of important or liability-laced information behind. It also sets a strategy for how to deal with shadow IT. Bring your own device, bring your own application, all those sorts of things. You probably already have a system in place, so let's not reinvent the wheel and create yet another silo. Providing these standards even provide a foundation for how to address emerging processes because we can extrapolate to that. For example, the business is going to do business via social, or at least they're going to be strongly encouraged to do so. So going back to the previous slide, the question is, how do we put a process in place to allow this while still ensuring that business needs, including regulatory compliance and liability needs, are effectively met? So in conclusion, business is in the business of the business. Unless you work for a records management vendor, your business is something else. So whatever that business is, your process and technology should be designed around what it is that you do rather than vice versa. Emerging technologies offer some great tools, and some of them may radically reinvent the way your organization does business. But others of them might be completely irrelevant to you, at least for now. Figure out what the use cases are that are best for you and the business of your business. Whatever tool you're using is a great tool probably, but it'll be even better when you use it in the context of basic modern records management practices: metadata, classification, retention, findability, and ultimately disposition. The combination of well-planned and managed technical capabilities and effective modern records management processes and practices, we believe, is a powerful foundation for enabling the business. So next steps, get up to speed. Take a look at AI, the cloud, robotic process automation, blockchain, whatever the buzzword of the day is. You don't have to become a technical expert in any of them, and certainly not all of them, but you should understand which use cases, for example, are really powerful with AI and which ones aren't as good a fit. And it has to be specific. Which use cases in your organization, given all of your constraints, could benefit from a tool? At the same time, review your records program. Is it up to date? Is it streamlined? Is it as automated as possible? And does it enable the business? Set up a cross-disciplinary team. If you take nothing else from my section of this presentation, set up a cross-disciplinary team that represents key stakeholders so that you can ensure that you apply these tools where they make most sense for the business, and that the supporting elements from IT and legal and privacy and certainly records management all have a voice at the table. Finally, look at these tools as tools and as part of business processes, not as ends unto themselves. You don't have to go from zero to hero this week. Set up a pilot, see if it provides business value.
Yep. And so, Jesse, I just want to reiterate some of those next steps that you just mentioned there. As you venture forward to modernizing your records management program, and we saw on the poll that most people are sort of more towards the modern and technology age, which is really great, but you need to consider some of these things. You want to start by defining the process and documenting your business process and the way the documents flow and your information flows throughout your organization. You want to look at your current sources of your documents and define a pragmatic approach to getting all digital or less paper, or even, as Jesse puts it, documents that move. It's obviously much easier and less costly to deploy good practices early and when it's not too late. And as we saw, again, with the poll, the modern records management program is different from everybody. Every business operates in their own unique way, and therefore I think it's important to note that one solution may not cover your problem in its entirety. There needs to be a plan of attack for existing physical data, existing digital data, and then specific processes that need attention first, second, and so on. Specifically, obviously you'll have to be aware of technologies like AI and process automation, which will help your business remain compliant. Continue to develop use cases on how those types of technologies will improve and transform your existing program. And you want to thoroughly review your existing records management program. Again, is it part of the workflow of the business because you're in the business of the business, or is it the stop at the end of the line? You need to understand what your corporate strategy, business objectives are, and how those goals are translating into change throughout your organization. This will help be the framework so you can help develop a plan for change and also interject yourself into the various groups within the organization where the change is occurring. You're going to want to offer assistance, guidance, and mentorship, and obviously automate as much as possible. And as Jesse pointed out, if you take nothing else from his part of the conversation as well as mine, don't forget to build that cross-functional relationships with legal, risk, and other business users so all aspects of the proposed solutions are created collaboratively and not within a black box. And again, you don't have to go from the dark ages to the technology age this week. Set up pilots with business units like human resources or accounts payable to see business value and then go on from there. And then just a quick word about Access. Access is a premier records management and information management company providing both physical and software solutions for your document management needs, including physical storage and asset protection, digital imaging, software solutions for document management, and destruction and shredding services. Our wide range of services are tailored to meet the needs of local and international businesses, driving cost savings and ensuring compliance in today's rapidly changing regulatory environment. Access is the largest privately held records and information management company in the world. We serve many markets across the U.S., Canada, and South America, helping to improve our clients' processes and programs, reducing risk while increasing productivity and profitability. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Teresa and see if there's questions that have come in.
Yes, thank you very much. We've been listening to Randy Sanders of Access, and before that, Jesse Wilkins of AIIM. And yes, we do have some questions coming in, and so take a few minutes to take some of those questions. And first thing first, Jesse, someone had asked a question, and I'm going to need for you to repeat it and dig back in your notes for this. Someone was asking for you to repeat what were those percentages of ROT, that redundant, outdated or obsolete, pick your term, of that material that's in information that's in your information silos. And so if you could repeat those stats, because someone was asking.
Yep. Sure. According to CGOC, and this survey is a couple of years old, but I think it still holds true, and obviously it's an average, so your organization may be different, especially if you're highly regulated. But what they found is that for the average organization, 2% of your information relates to a specific legal, regulatory, or audit type hold. 5% of your information is managed as formal records as part of your record-keeping program. And again, especially for public sector, this is going to be higher because of freedom of information type laws. But on average, 5% is records. 25% is needed to satisfy ongoing operational and business needs, so customer service and your billing and project documentation, all that stuff. And that leaves approximately 68% of your information as being redundant, outdated, trivial, your Justin Bieber greatest hits MP3s, the Jib Jab video you did last year, your photos from your summer vacation, all of that stuff that really doesn't have any more business value, but is still cluttering up your network, your file shares, and your systems.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know from my own experience and readings, off and on over the years, I've seen that stat vary between like 60 to 70%, depending on who was doing that research. So that, as you say, your average of 68% being that junk, that rot, that's right in line to things that I've been reading too over time. So I hope that answers the person's questions who had asked for us to repeat that stat. And so I want to get to another question here. And Randy, let me ask this to you. And one of the things that we had talked about a little bit in here are the importance of automating different parts of the processes. And one of the things that came up was automating metadata entry. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you're seeing your customers succeeding with it? Not to minimalize this to say just updating metadata entry, because it has a powerful impact. Can you talk a little bit about how your customers are succeeding with this?
Yeah, I'll give you an example as well. Many of our customers are using our technology and services in order to do, I'll call it back office type of work, but it's really that data entry. It's sort of the back office of things like human resources and accounts payable, among other things. But really those are the foremost examples. So for example, with accounts payable, chances are every organization or almost every organization's got an ERP system with workflows and approvals and hierarchies and all that other stuff that's defined within there, but they're still receiving paper. And now that's not in their control, right? That's something they're getting from the marketplace, depending on who their vendors are that they're dealing with. And so they have staffs of people that are doing data entry into their ERP system. And as Jesse puts it, that's not your business, right? You're in the business of being in business, of the business, whatever that is. And so doing data entry is just not business, right? It gets you to enabling the business, but that's not really where you need to focus. So, a lot of our clients will turn to us as a provider to help them outsource not only receiving that information from both a physical perspective, but also a digital perspective, right? There's emails of invoices going out, even EDI and some other formats as well. That will become centralized. We're going through applying business rules to that information, extracting the data off of those forms, and of the stuff that meets all the business criteria that's set forth by our clients, then that information gets pushed to their ERP system, really clean data, enables them to process and approve those invoices in a really timely manner. And that's just sort of one example of how data from a classification or automation perspective, and we're doing this again across businesses for multiple departments. That's just sort of one example. Hopefully that answers the question, Teresa.
Thank you, and I think that's very helpful. Jesse, I wanted to direct this next question to you because you were offering a lot of pointers for the strategies for pulling together the plans to modernize a records management practice. And someone's asking about getting buy-in from the senior management for improving your records program. Can you share some thoughts or ideas or things that have come up with your students over the years as good ways to do this?
Yeah, we used to say that it was all about the what's in it for me, the WIFM, we would call it. And you can still see that in some of our presentations, and that's incredibly powerful. Over the last couple of years, we've also seen a lot more of the what's the impact on me. And so whether you're looking at it from, I would say, the positive side, what's in it for me, or the negative side, what's the impact on me, how's it going to affect me, maybe positively, maybe negatively. I think the key thing to keep in mind is that senior managers and really all of your stakeholders are going to have different what's in it for me and what's the impact on me, depending on where they sit, right? So you've got to make a financial case to the CFO. If you're talking to legal and risk and compliance, you need to look at it through their eyes. If you're talking to privacy and data protection, they have a different point of view. And so I think part of this is really thinking through, again, with some specificity, what is it that a better records management program could do for this stakeholder, that stakeholder, the other stakeholder, and just go down the list. And ultimately, that kind of brings you in no small part to the strategy that you're going to end up looking at moving forward, because that's also going to get into things like prioritization. Obviously, whoever the stakeholder is that you're expecting to be the sponsor and provide the resources for this probably needs to be a little bit higher on your list of considerations than somebody who's only going to be tangentially involved, if at all. But I think that's the key thing is to keep in mind that it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take resources. It takes cultural shift and change management. None of those is free, and to get the resources for those, you're going to have to figure out how to break those resources free, and that means answering the question, what's in it for me and what's the impact on me?
Very thoughtful answer. Thank you. Thank you. I do want to just talk a little bit about one other thing here, so I'm going to hold on the rest of the questions for a moment, and I just want to do a little bit more than just mention AIIM's Modern Records Management Training course. As I introduced Jesse, I said, mentioned that he is one of our accredited trainers for all of our programs, and AIIM does offer live instructor-led training as well as the online self-paced classes. And we offer some deep dive courses, more quick study type of offerings. We can also arrange to have a trainer to come to your place of business to provide a custom perspective of our instructor-led programs. And so information on all of our programs are at AIIM.org/training, but we have specifically our Modern Records Management course. That's at AIIM.org/MRM. But Jesse, since you are here and you have been instrumental in being involved with our Modern Records Management training course, I just want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about that.
Sure. And again, I think the key thing for us is, I think the key thing for us as we were looking at putting that course together is really trying to focus it on enabling the business. And so for every module, we kind of outline how does this apply to the business. We talk about metadata. Okay, what's metadata do for the business from these various different perspectives? At the same time, we also wanted to make sure that we did kind of take a look at some of the new, maybe not so new in some cases, but emerging technology issues such as privacy and data protection, such as dealing with records in the cloud, dealing with social media, and again, even decommissioning legacy systems and legacy users. And so it's a class I'm quite proud of. I like to think that it's something that's going to be practical and usable for the folks who take it. And as Teresa said, you can find more information about it at AIIM.org/MRM, or you can also find it by contacting me directly at jwilkins@AIIM.org.
Thanks, Jesse. By talking about the offerings that AIIM have to help you with more resources, I know Access has resources. There is a link in the resources list specific to Access's website for some specific information there. But also, there's I know when I was looking through their website, a lot of valuable information in there at accesscorp.com. So please avail yourself of all of the good resources that our speakers and the resources they have at their disposal are here to make available to you today. So we are at the end of our webinar time today, and just wanted to remind you that we have recorded this presentation. It will be available in a day or two at the webinar's resources page. Do download the resources. Please take the survey. I greatly value your feedback. And more than anything, I want to thank our underwriter Access. Without support from our solution providers, we wouldn't be able to bring you these free educational programs like our webinar. So thank you, Access, for your sponsorship. And so as we bring this webinar to a close, I am going to ask each of our speakers for their closing thought or key takeaway. And let me start first with Randy Sanders of Access. Your closing thoughts today.
Yeah, Teresa. So thank you for allowing me to speak today. And in closing, I just again, want to leave you with a thought here. Working with and finding a vendor who will guide you through your process, as a trusted advisor should be one of those things that, you shouldn't feel like you're going at this alone. The great people at Access, Jesse and the team at AIIM and and of course us at Access are more than willing to help and guide you through whatever challenges lie ahead. And even if that's just a sounding board for us, hey, we've got a quick question, thinking about doing this. Does it make sense? Is this whatever? We're always looking to hear from anybody, to see what's trending out there in the marketplace. So feel free to reach out, and we'll offer assistance we can. But thank you again, Teresa, for this. It's been great.
Thanks, Randy. Jesse Wilkins of AIIM, your closing thoughts today.
Yeah, I think I can't stress this too many times. The business is in the business of business, and so whether you're in IT, whether you're in records, whatever support department you're in, we have to help enable the business to be more successful. And so I think our success in whatever role that we're in really comes from figuring out how to make the business more successful. To that end, I think the buzzword and the hallmark of every discussion on records management should be about streamline and automate. Automate everything that you can and make it as simple as possible, but as Einstein said, no simpler.
Thanks, Jesse. And thank you, everyone, for your time today. We are at the end of our webinar. Thank you, Access, for your sponsorship. And we will see you all on our next webinar. And have a good afternoon.